Here we go. Good morning, folks. It is the Monday before Thanksgiving. I hope you have an amazing Thanksgiving time with family, all of that good stuff. I talked on my daily financial news about all the things I'm personally thankful for. If you haven't listened to that, take a listen. I won't repeat it here, but a lot of you are the reason that I'm thankful as we think about this time of year, what we're thankful for. But this session, this hour, this half hour, whatever it turns out to be, is for you. So if you have any questions about any topic, I'm game to talk about anything you would like. You could put it in the comments or the chat. You could raise your hand. And how do you raise your hand now? You go to the react button and you will see that's the little heart, and you can see recognize hand gestures, raise your hand or anything. So I am here for you guys. So feel free to ask questions and anything you would like. So Frank, you come with maybe a question or two, or maybe some topics from past accountability groups that would help riff on stuff.
Well, thank you. Everything's going pretty good today, but over the last few months, we've had quite a few challenges. Sometimes it's, I guess, a little bit hard to stay positive going through those kinds of things. We had 5 vacant units, 2 evictions in Milwaukee, and we have 3 single families in St. Louis. And you answered my question in there. I was looking for a HELOC or something for a little bit more money to get us through the turnovers and maybe a slow rent cycle to help us get into the new year. We did find a solution, and you mentioned being thankful earlier, and we're just as thankful for this whole group. We got quite a few good suggestions. We do belong to a couple of other groups, and I was talking to Mikey yesterday, telling him that I'm always out there letting people know to lean on this community and lean in whatever communities you're in. And I forget myself, and sometimes it's hard to ask for help, but just putting it out there got a lot of good responses. So so we're making some progress.
So let's talk about this. You guys have all heard me say, the first 5 years suck. I don't know what it is. I really do think real estate investing tries to test you. Right. I remember in the very beginning, it always felt like it came in waves. Right. You're good, 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 good. And then a bad wave smacked you. And it was always like, why does this all happen at the same time? Right. If this happened one at a time, I'd be fine. But it just all comes. And I just think that's part of real estate's testing you. I love the fact that you leaned into the group, right? You got to do that. This community is like no other community. We are all going the same direction. We may be at different points of the journey, but we're all going through it. So, it's great to post victories, but we've got to post the real stuff, right? And it happens to all of us, right? If you haven't had an insurance claim, guess what? I had my 4th fire at one of my apartment buildings. 2 units were damaged. Again, I've been through it. So when it happens to you the first time, you freak out. When it happens the second time, less freaked out. When it happens the 4th time, it's a non-event. It didn't move. I didn't lose a wink of sleep. What happens? I call my insurance company. I'm on the phone for 5 minutes. I get a claim number. I don't live in the market, so I connect the adjuster with my on-site property manager. And guess what? They're working through it. I'm going to get lost rents for those 2 units. I'm going to get a brand new, remodel of 2 units. Everybody was fine, thankfully, right? No liability, just structure. The bad stuff does happen. This journey we're on together, it happens to everyone. It's just, I don't know what it is about it. It always feels like it's in waves. So looks like you got hit by a negative wave. You're getting through it, and you'll be stronger for it, and you'll be able to help other people. the next time. And you'll take a few lessons learned, right? Next time your reserves will be a little bit higher, right? You'll maybe off season this or that. It's just getting through and staying in the fight. So Frank, congratulations. Thanks for being vulnerable. It happens to all of us. Um, you know, best wishes.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
Very, very cool. Well, we do have a hand raised. Santiago, what's on? What's going on?
Hey everybody, how's it going? Okay, I'm gonna try to see if I can articulate this properly. It's a little bit, might be a little convoluted, but all right. So typically speaking, right, when there's inflation, that's a feature, not a bug, right? It's beneficial for the asset owners,
Correct.
property owners. But lately, things are a little bit weird, and I've been hearing sort of different narratives, whether from the different news media or, I don't know, Twitter and the various YouTube podcasts
Mhm.
that I follow, right, including,
Mhm.
people that speak on your show,
Sure.
that it might be an inflationary year next
Mhm.
year, but
Sure.
also that it's going to be a bad year for real estate, which is kind of,
Yeah.
in my mind, those two are conflicting, right? Because if inflation is a feature,
Mm.
wouldn't that be good for people that have the assets?
Well, again, one of the folks you might have been listening to, just given the words you used, might have been Melody, right? She's
Yes.
getting a lot of press recently,
Yeah.
so not surprising that you've. I'm trying to get her on my show again. I think we're talking the week after Thanksgiving, so we're going to have this discussion. So I'll withhold judgment until I speak with Melody, because I'm going to have her walk me through her logic. But could it be a bad year for real estate, even though it's inflationary? Absolutely, it could. It absolutely could. In theory, what would that mean? Well, it's going to be like the GFC. We would need some kind of event to throw on hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of properties every week. And we would need so much waves of supply that it dwarfs demand. And that would be very much GFC. So that would be a bad year for real estate. And inflation could still go higher because real estate is a single asset inside a complex economy. So could it happen? Absolutely. Now, near as I can tell, Melody's logic is, um, something about, she is unquestionably has a set of experience that I don't have, right? She was at servicers. She has access to mortgage pool data that I think very few people have. So she has unique access to data, which is a strength of hers, and why I love talking to her, even though um, she is negative and I'm not. I just love talking to people that have data I don't have because you never know if I'm missing something. However, if you listen to her, she has PTSD from the GFC. She thinks everything is the same as the GFC. And if you do not understand that today's setup is completely different, you're not paying attention. What do I mean by that? Well, in the GFC, when it really started rocking and rolling in '08 and '09 and 10 and 11, we have to go back to '06. Loan originations in 2006 were about 50% adjustable rate mortgages. 12% were these teaser, neg am loans, which are now illegal. What do we have today? Well, we got 40% of the country that don't have debt. That's new. That's different. Hard to be broke if you have no debt. So 40% has no debt. Then about, I don't know, somewhere between 85 and 87% of all existing mortgages are fixed below 5%, and like 70% are fixed below 4%. So there's just not the setup for what she's talking about. And I'm going to get her on my show and, we're going to go through the muck and mire. It's just, She just wants to be, she's just a doomer. It's just Crash sister or something. There's no setup. And again, I saw a post yesterday on X, which I actually replied, saying that she's calling for some double digit decline in the first half of 2025. Are you freaking kidding me? The worst year in the GFC was 12% negative. The worst. It doesn't, real estate is not the stock market, is not crypto. It doesn't happen that fast. Melody Wright can be right, but her timing is just not even close. Do you guys have any idea what banks would do if we had a spike in unemployment? They would do these little, extended pretend and don't pay payments and put it on the back end. We're just not going to have this cascade of inventory. It's not coming. If, and again, I replied on X, if you want to talk about a 40% housing crash, you better be talking about a 40% housing crash over 4 or 5 years. It can not happen in a single calendar year. It just won't happen. So, yeah, I mean, I've had like 100 people message me in the last 3 or 4 days after she was on some other channel talking about a terrible 2025. I will get her back on the channel. We are friendly. We disagree. And again, I think she's got great data. I just think she's got PTSD from the GFC. This is not the GFC. This is far more like the savings and loan crisis. If you want to talk about the savings and loan crisis, that was a 9-year journey to get to the bottom. That might be more interesting to talk about. This is not the GFC, 2.0, in my opinion. But I mean, you probably watched the video. I have not because I can't stomach watching stuff like that. What were some of her other points that maybe I missed?
Well, I mean, probably some of it was honestly probably a little bit over my head, but my takeaway was that it's worse than what people expect, right?
Yeah, so let's talk about that. So again, I think she's right. I mean, what do I think Melody Wright is correct on? I think there was last time we talked about mortgage fraud. I think she's right. I think there were a lot of people who took out owner occ loans for Airbnb rentals. I think she is absolutely right. I think she's wrong that that's going to create some massive supply of listings and foreclosures and short sales. So again, she's pointing at the right area. There will certainly be some pain, but the magnitude I disagree with. She's also big on seconds, which I think is interesting. Not a lot of people talk about seconds and silent seconds being a problem. I guess the biggest thing I disagree with, and again, we're trying to get it scheduled for the week after Thanksgiving, is timing. I think she sees the dominoes falling too fast. Could real estate go into a problem? Absolutely, it could. Could it happen in 6 months? No. It just, real estate doesn't act that quickly.
Okay. Yeah, good. Yeah, good to know. Good to know. Yeah, it's. I guess at the end of the day, you kind of got to play it one day at a time because you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, of course. And the beauty of all this, and I even think Melody would agree, is you got to have your buy box in your area,
Yeah.
right? If your buy box is South Florida, you're in a world of hurt. If your buy box is Austin, Texas, you're in a world of hurt.
Yeah.
If your buy box is New Haven, I don't know where that is, New Hampshire or somewhere, you're probably okay. Your inventory is not back to where it was. So at the end of the day, I think even Melody would agree. We can argue about the national picture, but I think both of us agree it's your buy box, it's your area. Know what's going on in your patch of dirt. Some are good, some are bad. I think we would both agree on that. Very, very cool. And if anybody else actually saw Melody Wright's interview, I think it was on Sound Money or something, because I literally 100 people sent me the video. I just can't watch it. Feel free to ask questions. Tell me what was on it. I'd love to know more before I interview her. Troy, you got your hand up, buddy. What do you got? Oh, no, he doesn't. Did Troy leave? Oh, no, Troy's there. Troy, no question? Nope, guess not.
Oh, sorry, my reception just cut out.
Oh,
Can you
okay.
hear
How
me?
you doing? Yeah, you're good.
All right, it's sorry, it might be patchy. I hope it comes through. For some reason, it's cutting out pretty bad. Um, I, you brought something to my attention. It's not the question I originally asked, but
Mhm.
you said that she's concerned about silent seconds or seconds. Like
Yep.
how would that be a problem? Most seconds are a negotiated like contract.
Mhm.
If you're not going to have the ability to pay off your second as you agreed upon, I mean, it can be renegotiated. I'm just trying to understand where
Well,
she would
well,
see that being a
we're
problem.
again. You have to be very. You have to pay attention and you have to understand her background. Her point about the silent seconds is the owners, either forget or don't really understand they're there. So her point is at some point these sellers are going to sell their property and expect, a big check, and then they're going to forget there's this silent second there that's going to eat up into it. So her point is these silent seconds are not calculated or understood by the average consumer, and thus when they go to sell their property they're going to be negatively surprised. That's her point. And I think that's valid. I mean, a lot of consumers are going to forget it's there because they're not writing a payment every month. But when they go to refi or they go to sell, that debt's getting paid. So I think she's wise to point that out. I think that's fair. That's what she says. Hopefully you heard that. Oh, we lost him. I don't see him anymore. I want to shout out Richard. Richard, good morning from Fruitendale, California. Just joined 2 minutes ago. How you doing, buddy? Thank you for being here.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. I've
Awesome.
been connecting with Frank here in the near past, and I'm here. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome, buddy. Awesome. Well, feel free to ask any and all questions. Love the fact that you joined 2 minutes ago and you're already in the stream. So very, very cool. Let's see. Stacy just got off the phone with a plumber. $3,000 drain work done lately. I feel like it's step one forward, two back. Yeah, again, I feel for you. My story I shared with Frank is legit. In the first 5 years, it often feels like everything's good, 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 and then bam, three things go bad on the seemingly same day, same week. Um, just to commiserate with you for a minute, I remember Olivia and I buying houses during the GFC, and I want to say it was six. It might have been five, but five or six houses in a row had a main line sewer break. And the reason they had mainline sewer breaks is these houses had been vacant for a while. The water was turned off. Tree roots were seeking water. They cracked the pipe. Then, lo and behold, somebody moved in after we did a full remodel, turned on the water. Tree roots expanded. Ah, yeah, that was very expensive. So I know exactly how that feels. But you'll get through it, Stacy. Abruptly break their lease, left a broken window. Nice, husband can fix it. They had the audacity to ask for their deposit back. Yeah, people. Saved $2,000. Nice work. Yeah, 5 years suck. Agreed. Oh, we got Troy with his hand up again. Or Troy with his hand up. Troy, go ahead.
Yeah, some reason our network has been spotty lately, so
Glitchy, yeah.
it just totally dropped the Zoom on you. My question is, so I'm trying to figure out how to just keep moving forward and being consistent with my real estate. Um, trying, I'm running into like there's so much going on between managing because I'm self managing my property right now, and then we got kids and then my regular W-2, and then I'm involved in trying to start up a co-hosting business as well. And what I'm running into is the overwhelm,
Yeah,
and
time.
so it's getting I get to the point where it's like the overwhelm really hinders my progress, I feel, because, when I should be making calls, I get distracted and doing something because I'm just like, I feel like all I'm doing is just putting out fires
Mm.
and trying to find enough time to have a life. Well, I would say necessarily have a life. It's keeping that drive to call sellers, call agents, do the work. What
Yeah.
do you recommend to just like keep pressing forward? Because I feel like right now I'm dealing with the FOMO effect of knowing it's a buyer's market, and I know that I'm not like making enough calls or constantly viewing my market enough to like capture a deal. I mean, my goal is to get one more deal by the end of the year. That would make two for me this year, and that's my goal, is to try to get that. And I have a private money lender that wants to invest with me, but I feel like I'm just the offers
Yeah.
I'm putting in are what work for me, but a lot of sellers are just like they're no dice.
Well, so there's kind of two answers. So first and foremost, I want to applaud you for doing the right work on that last statement. I want everybody to hear this. All of you should only be writing offers that make sense for you and your cost of capital. I don't give a rat's ass if that's 10, 15, 20, 30% below list price. It doesn't matter. There is not a deal in real estate until there's a buyer. And some sellers get that, some don't. And it's your job to just keep following up. Sellers who don't get it will do one of a couple of things. One, they will let the listing expire. That's okay. Two, they will take their home off the market, right? Lots of people don't have to sell. They want to sell. So those people will eventually take it off. And then at some point, the property is going to get sold. It's either going to get sold to you or to someone else. The problem is you as a buyer don't know which of those three things the seller is. Are they a want to sell or a need to sell? And the only thing you could do is write the offers that make sense and then follow up every 7 to 10 days. So that's the first thing. So you shouldn't feel bad. You should not feel bad about that. If your private money lender is giving you cost of capital at 8, you should only write deals that make sense at 8. If it's 10, you're doing the right things. Second, what I would be doing in this cycle, given what you've just shared, is I would orient myself to follow up. It sounds like you're spending a lot of time trying to get new top of funnel, right? New contacts, new calls. I'm going to guess you have a list of properties that you have written offers on. And if the list is long enough, I think your deal is there. Most of the deals that I got in buyers markets were from follow-up. I never got a deal with my first offer. I frankly probably never got a deal with my second offer. But because I'm consistent, because I would follow up, eventually that motivated seller says, hey, he's the only one that keeps making an offer. Let's work out a deal with this guy. So if I had scarce time and I was putting out fires and I was trying to do all of these things, I would orient 20 to 30 minutes of my day to follow up versus more top of funnel. That's what I think might work. Troy, did you get that? It was Troy, right? I think it was Troy. Is Troy still there? Oh, we might have lost Troy. Oh, Troy's still there. Troy, did that make sense? Did you get all that? Ask to unmute. I'm going to guess that made sense. Herman's got a question over here. Again, remember, folks, raise your hand, put comments, ready to rock and roll. Let's see what Herman had to say. Mention one of your current videos, 2025, great opportunity. Like trading singles. Yep. Do you mind elaborating on perhaps some tactical steps you have taken if I'm able to get, okay. If I'm able to get a 15 to 20 year. Yeah. So, a couple of things, kind of tactical. When you look at your MLS or you go to LoopNet or Crexy or any of these sources, the first thing to realize in most markets, the commercial stuff, the 5 to 40-unit buildings, you're going to quickly realize that only a handful of real estate agents control the market. You know, in the market of Fresno, California, there's 3 or 4 guys that control probably half the listings. So the first thing I would do, knowing that we have this opportunity in the next 18 to 24 months, is I would spend 3 months trying to figure out who those people are in my area. Like, who are the top 5 brokers, who seem to get all the listings, all of that. So that's step 1, tactical. Step 2 is you got to try to get in front of them, you know, on the phone or in person. You got to realize that all real estate investors want to get in front of them. So don't be surprised if they don't give you the time of day. Ask to meet somebody on their team. Most of these big guys have a team. So, like, there's a guy in my market called Ron something. In the beginning, I could never get Ron's time, but I asked Ron for a team member. He gave me the most green rookie guy of all rookie guys. But you know what? I made that guy my friend, and we wrote some offers. And eventually, this guy, you know, gave me Ron's number. And you know, now, you know, I could call Ron and he'd know who I was. So the first thing is you got to find out who they are. Second thing, you've got to become known to them. Third, I would tell you to start running some numbers, realizing it's a different game. Residential property is 30-year fixed rate debt. Commercials 3, 5, 7 years. So you got to know that commercial debt's different. I would probably join some, like, usually if the city's big enough, they'll have like an apartment association or something where all of these apartment owners kind of gather once a month or once a quarter. Go to those if you can, because they're different. It's not a real estate meetup. These are probably 5, 10, 15 people that probably own hundreds of units, talking about evictions and different changes to laws and zoning. They just talk a different game. I would start tracking listings, because again, if I'm right about this market, what's going to happen is just what happened last time. So I'm going to tell a real story that for Olivia and I. There was an 18-unit building that was listed on LoopNet and the MLS for 1.44 million, 18 units. I think it's 10 ones and 8 twos, I think is the configuration. I could be off. It wasn't worth 1.44. At the first time I saw it, it was probably worth 1.2. So why was it listed at 144? Well, the owner that's now selling it paid 1.4 for it like 2 or 3 years earlier during the bubble. And he knew he was in trouble because it fell in value, but he didn't want to get out. His lender was trying to do extend and pretend. It's like, okay, if you can't repay the loan, let's try to sell the building. We'll get our capital back, yada, yada, yada. Unfortunately, that went on for about a year to 18 months. The bank just kept extending and extending because it was listed. It was going to sell. It was going to sell, blah, blah, blah. Unfortunately, what happened during that 18 months is the owner who had it listed at 1.4 was only worth 1.2, stopped maintaining the building. So every month or every quarter, the value of that building is going down. And ultimately, the bank had to foreclose. Ultimately, the bank had 18 units that were literally destroyed. And they had to sell it. And because I had been following it, because I'd been reaching out, because I'd been communicating, I was the first guy they reached out to and said, do you want it? Now, they tried to get me at $1 million. We did a walkthrough and this, that, the other. And I said, 700 grand. And we ultimately got it. So why did I tell that long story? Because I expect it to happen the same way. We are going to start to see more and more and more multifamily properties listed at stupid and absurd prices. The banks will extend and pretend because they're hoping to get their equity back or their debt back paid off. And what's going to happen is the owners are going to bleed them dry, and then eventually they'll be foreclosed and we'll pick them up. So the third and final step in this is just to pay attention and to track, watch, what I just gave you is exactly what I'll be doing in this cycle. And I'm already starting to see it very early. I'm starting to see more and more 5 to 50 unit buildings listed. at absurd prices. And it's slower than we all want. I wish I could tell you the deals would happen in Q1 of 25. Not likely. Banks are going to give them 6 months of extend and pretend, and then probably another 6 months. And it's just the game we're playing. So Herman, that's what I am doing and what I would recommend others do. Hopefully that made sense. Feel free
Thank you
to.
very much, Mike.
Oh, you're very welcome. I don't see you. Oh, there you are. No problem. Any follow-up questions, Herman?
No, 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 no. I
Okay.
think you've given a lot for me to chew on. Thank you.
Cool. Awesome. And again, this is exactly what I'm doing right now. Troy, I still see your hand up. Do you have a follow-up question?
Oh no, I forgot to pull it down. But hey,
That's
thanks
right.
for answering that. I was just with my job. I was in the middle of a delivery, so I was listening.
No
So
problem. Good.
trying to do both. Awesome. Thank you.
I understand. No worries.
Hey, Mike,
Santiago? Yep.
yeah, I do have a follow-up
Perfect.
on the last question. If
Awesome.
would it be a good idea then to maybe, well, would it be appropriate to maybe get rid of some of those properties that are not really performing like they should in preparation for, some dry powder coming up in 25, 26? Maybe just throw it into like a high yield savings account so it's not just losing to
Yeah.
inflation. If I could afford that, would that be a wise decision?
That's a bigger question. And I'll make it a bigger question so others could benefit from it. I have no qualms about selling a property that's not performing as I expected. That said, I typically try to make it work. So I'll talk about the last building Olivia and I sold. It was a triplex on Glen. This triplex on Glen is a great deal. It's a duplex in front, brand new house in the back. It's like it was supposed to be like a grand slam. And for whatever reason, at that street, that part of the street, I just could never keep tenants. It was like every 6 to 9 months, somebody would break a lease. You know, sometimes the neighbors would fight. I mean, it's like, not again. So Olivia and I in what year is it? 24. So in 2022, like the end of the year, maybe early 23, we look at our portfolio and this freaking property on Glen, which we probably owned for 5 or 6 years, was once again the problem child. And Olivia and I looked at each other and said, time to sell it. It's like, I don't know if we're unlucky. Like when one property is 80% of your headache, gone, especially if it's not performing, gone, sell it, move the capital somewhere else. So I fully approve that. I do not generally approve, hey, it's been 6 months. It's not up. I mean, that's not long enough. But if it's been years and you're just snake bitten, sell that thing, move the equity somewhere else. Totally up with that. Now, the second part of your question, is it wise to raise dry powder now for what might be coming in the future? Again, it's hard to say without knowing specifics. It's probably too early because I still think, right, my current, like, why, I'll just answer what I'm doing. I'm not currently doing that because I believe what happens before the real pain comes in commercial is we have more room to run in residential. Right? My whole theory of this is resi runs another 5 to 15%. And then, I get that extra and move over. And again, the other thing, and I got this from a Real Deal article. I think I talked about it on the Daily Financial News a couple of days ago. There's a chance I'm just flat out wrong. Right? There's this notion of extend and pretend. What the Real Deal was pointing out is banks aren't pretending this time. They're just extending. So why are they doing that? Well, first off, the payments are coming in. Second, they're getting huge premiums on interest rates. They're getting rate caps. So there is a chance that this huge event that I see late 25, 26 doesn't come because banks just let the owners work themselves out over the next 3 or 4 years. So that is absolutely possible. I could be absolutely wrong in my call of a repeat of the collapse of commercial as banks just extend and extend. So if, with that view of the market, I don't think I would raise capital for something that may not come, especially if the asset I own still has some upside. So that's how I look at all of that.
Okay. Yeah, I think the asset that I'm talking about probably has some downside to it actually, because
Okay.
it's an HOA community and it's
Oh, yeah.
yeah, there's
Okay.
problems with the tenants, but mostly just a lot of assessments. They had to change the electrical panel, the
Yeah.
balcony had to be replaced. I heard that
Yeah.
the
I mean,
floor part
if
in.
that's what we're talking about, I mean, that's kind of the first point. If there's just headwinds for this property, sometimes it's like, okay, I tried, I learned my lesson, don't do HOA again as like this example. Yeah, I mean, the right answer could be selling. You don't have to hold forever, right? Sometimes you got to move your chips around.
Yeah, yeah. The unfortunate thing is I think it kind of peaked maybe like last year, I guess.
Mm,
And now it's just kind of dropping in price
mm,
significantly. It's still not, it's still maybe 20, $30,000 over what I had paid for it. But that's tiny amount over the years that I've had it. I've
yeah.
had it for several years. So I might just have to take a loss. That's what I'm trying to consider now. Maybe just not necessarily take a loss, but just get rid of it and maybe
Move
hold
the
it for a little
capital.
bit or look for
Yeah.
something, move it elsewhere.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough, right? We buy these things to hold forever. At least that's what I tell myself. And sometimes stuff changes. I mean, again, I don't know your situation, but sometimes you're buying in market this takes off and then it doesn't because maybe HOA or short-term rental changes.
Mhm.
Lots of things can impact the value of something. And sometimes it's like, okay, the rules changed. What made sense day one doesn't make sense given the new rules, and you
Mhm.
have to move. You have to move in that case.
Yeah. The opposite kind of happened to me also with another HOA property where I used to live, and then I sold that to buy a multifamily. I probably could have worked something out so that I didn't have to sell, but at the time I was like, well, it's an older building. They're saying that the roof has to be replaced, the boiler is for the entire building, so that's going to be expensive.
Yeah.
This, that, and the other. And I was like, I'm just gonna avoid all these expenses. Little did I know, pandemic hits and now it's
Mm,
worth like 100,000 more,
mm,
right? So, so my exact same thought process that I took over there is kind of what I'm thinking over here, right? But you never know, right? What's gonna happen?
yeah. 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 Again, when you only, you make a decision when you buy under a set of rules and assumptions. You fast forward years, if the rules and assumption have changed, the right answer could be to sell. I mean, it's you don't,
Yeah,
it sucks, but the rules change. The rules change, right? If the assumptions change, the assumptions change. I would have no problem selling a property, and again, I'd be looking for the next one to move that capital in. Make sense, Santiago? That was
yeah.
Santiago.
Thank you very much. I do have a follow-up, but it looks like Troy
Please.
has a question. It's kind of related to it, so maybe you just want to tackle that for him. I'll follow up on that.
Uh, okay, the one that says, "How are you analyzing your properties to view in what is not performing? Cash flow, cash on cash maintenance." So again, I only can answer the question for what I do. So the first thing I look at is headache factor, right? Because when I add something to my portfolio, legitimately, unless I call it a flip, which I don't flip, I'm not flipping right now. Um, my plan's to hold forever. So I make sure cash flow is day one. All the things that we talk about here at one rental at a time. For the first thing is headache factor. Is one property consuming extra cycles more than it should? So that's number one. I do not look at return on equity. I don't do that. And maybe that's just because it absolutely is because I won the game. So I don't look at return on equity. I did look at it early because I kept uh, levering up my debt, right? Cash out refis and the like, but I don't look at that today. Um, I do look at cash flow to make sure it's hitting or exceeding my expectations, but at this point, everything is. So for me, really, right now, it's headache factor. Like, is this property literally that triplex on Glen for years was 70 to 80% of our headaches, and in that case, it just had to go. Um, I mean, one of the things like going back to Norris Drive, which I talk about in my first book, it had to go once it became an alligator, right? Again, you guys know this. I bought a property, it worked. Then I did a cash out. I took out too much cash and it didn't work. It didn't work for years. I hated that. I hated that house because I had to work like 3 hours or something every month just to pay the freaking mortgage. I hated that house. So I will sell alligators every time. I just won't keep an alligator for sure. Um, so those are my thoughts on
Yeah.
Troy's question.
My follow-up on that was precisely with the cash, the return on equity portion of it, right? Because I do have a property that does really well. It's like about 15% return, I guess, based on my investment in cash on cash, right? I had it
Okay.
for
I like
many
that.
years,
15% is
and
not bad.
yeah, so I'm happy from that perspective. It's a single family. People tend to stay there longer.
Yep.
It does need repairs now, roof and some other stuff. I just recently changed the AC, so that was like $7,000. But anyway, I have maybe about close to 300K in equity on that property because it's paid off, and maybe 250 after everything's said and done.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was thinking, that's what I'm struggling with is, hey, it's a good monthly cash flow, but I could probably use this and buy a bigger, better property, newer property, more units. And even though I'll be levered, I don't mind that as long as
Yeah.
there's more cash flow.
Yeah. No, I mean, the first question I would ask myself in this case is, are you in growth mode or chill mode? Right. And again, what would I do in this case? If I'm in growth mode, if I liked the asset, I personally would go get a 50% loan, take the cash flow down, but still, healthy. And I
Mhm.
would use that, in this case, 125 to buy another asset. If I didn't like the asset or I thought it was going downhill, I would do a 1031 exchange into something bigger, right? If you are in growth mode, part of the reason Olivia and I got to where we were is we were playing Monopoly, right? 4 greenhouses, 1 red hotel. That's the game we were on. Now, let's be clear, Dion, the lazy landlord, somebody that everybody loves because he's the lazy landlord, he didn't do any of this. His job was just get to 11 or 12 properties and he was good to go. So it depends where you want to be. You could be done with 10 units. It just wasn't my strategy. My strategy again was to bust my ass making as much money as I could during the day and then play the game of Monopoly in real life. Greenhouses became, red apartments. So you certainly have a choice, but I would have no problem taking, and I've told Dion this, right? Dion has a duplex now that he owns free and clear. And I said, you're a fool for not taking 50% of that and redeploying that capital. So
Would
those are some thoughts.
Yeah, let me pose a scenario here. So,
Sure.
I'm getting a 15% return cash on cash on the property.
Yep.
And let's say that I think that's like around $1,300. It's nothing crazy, but it's decent.
Mm-hmm.
And if I was to move that capital to a different property, a multifamily, let's say it's highly levered, and I'm only making a 5% return, but it's still 1,300 a month, right? So the dollar value is the same, but I guess the deal is not as sweet as the original one. Would
Yeah,
you
I
have
would
a
stay in
problem
the
with that?
house. No, I would do that. I would not do that, Dion,
Okay.
because one of the things, the current building is seasoned and known. The new building is still assumptions, and typically assumptions are always on the downside. Lastly, you said it in your intro, I think. People don't leave houses. My biggest shock from buying my first multifamily on Vassar, 5 unit, 1 bedrooms, was how fast people turn over. And turnover is what kills landlords. The average tenure in a house is 8 years. The average tenure in an apartment is like 2 years. So no way you'd likely be losing money with turnover. If it was, you've got to make sure the return is better,
Right.
significantly better
Right.
in the next
Okay.
asset.
Okay. Yeah, it makes sense.
Very cool. Troy, do you have another follow-up question or did I not lower the hand? I forget.
No, I had another follow-up question.
Okay, cool.
So you mentioned what you're looking at in terms of your performance of your property. Like this is something I've been curious at, especially when I'm analyzing a lot of properties. Like when I'm looking at a lot of properties to potentially purchase, especially in my market, like if
Mhm.
I'm not getting close to like, so looking at a duplex, if I'm not getting close to $1,000 in cash flow,
Mhm.
that which would include my property management, my maintenance costs, and and my some of my utility costs. So then there's probably about $400 right there that just gets chewed up out of $1,000. So
Right.
that then you're looking at almost $600 of cash flow. So you're for a duplex, that's only $300 per unit. Like I've always been curious how others are looking at when they're underwriting the properties. What is realistic for them? To me, it's like if I'm not getting $300 a month in cash flow, it's a no deal. It's like it's not worth it.
Yeah, I can't speak for everyone else. I could just, talk about my story. So again, I lean heavily on yield. I want to know how hard my cash is working. If you follow me, you understand what that is.
Yep.
There's two, right? You understand when I say yield, you know what that means, yeah, Troy?
Yes, I do.
Okay, cool. We won't go into that then. But that said, there has to be some minimum cash flow. Like like you theoretically could have an infinite return on $5 of cash flow, which would be stupid.
Mhm.
It'd be
Yeah.
dumb, right? No down. It's just dumb. So you do have to have some minimum threshold. For me, back in the day, it was $200, but that was because I was doing houses. They had a lot less turnover, and that was after everything, including reserves for bad debt, evictions, and all of these other things. If I'm not walking away with $200 a month minimum, I don't care what the yield is, right? Now in multifamily, um, it was probably again, it's been so long. It was probably still $200 a door. It might have been 150 a door now that I think about it. But that's just because there was more doors. So I think it was 150 in the beginning. But what I learned after buying Vassar was that was a mistake. I had incorrectly assumed because there was more doors, I could take less cash flow. Complete mistake because the turnover was worse. So the next deals we did, I wanted more cash flow. And I think by the time we bought our 10 unit, we were looking for 250 a door. So the long story short, if I was expecting 200 for a house, I wanted actually more for units because turnover's higher. I needed to account for that. So that's what I learned.
Yeah. Another thing is I look at when I'm looking at these properties, it depends on the age of the property. A lot of the properties I'm looking at are pushing 100 years.
Mm.
So to me, it's like there's so much more capex involved
Yeah.
into it that, especially if you're not purchasing it with a new HVAC unit, a new hot water heater, the roof within
Yeah.
10, 12 years,
Yeah.
then it's like you can have you can shrink that cash flow margin. But if it's not, I'm looking at them like,
Yeah.
you don't know what you're getting into, especially when you're trying to build your reserves up. If you're not getting like 300 plus for me, it just
Yeah.
to me it's like it does not take very long for a big expenditure to just decimate your reserves, or you don't have enough reserves, period, and then you're coming out of pocket to
Amen.
recover it.
Yeah. What I would be doing in today's market, because again, I do think it's a buyer's market. And if I was buying old buildings, which most of my stuff I own is between 50 and 100 years old, um, is if I'm still writing offers, I would do everything I could to make the mechanicals, the roof, all of that good to go, right? Or make it clear you're paying less because of that, right? If in a buyer's market, it is your time to ask for everything, right? And like let's say it needs a new roof, just for example, and you get a discount, I don't know, 20 grand or whatever it is on the price. I would actually include the $12,000 roof as part of my make ready. So it would impact the yield because that would be cash coming out of my pocket. Um, I would bank that money up front. Like if I was buying something and it needed a new roof, I would make sure that 12 grand is somewhere ready to go, as opposed to hoping that, cash flow pays for it in a year or something.
Yeah,
Frank? Oh,
that's
go ahead, Troy.
go for it. I was gonna say, yeah, that's that's one thing I've been in my offers lately. It's like I'm either asking for a credit on
Absolutely.
the offer, or they're either going to replace something at
Yeah,
close,
perfect.
something like that. And it's
Be
the hard
aggressive.
thing.
Be
The
aggressive.
hard thing with it is, it's then you get crickets, and you're like, all right, well, apparently they're not doing that. And the one thing I have noticed recently in my market is that, especially when it comes to, a good, so say if you're viewing a duplex, like if a duplex comes on market that's in really good condition, that's in a good area, it's surprising what I've seen go in a matter of pricing. Like I've noticed that it's either people are sitting on the sidelines with a lot of capital and they need to move on it quickly, that they're willing to pay more than it's worth. And I've
Mm,
seen that, and I'm like, because I've had a couple properties I've put offers on,
yeah.
and then all of a sudden, like the agents get back and he's like, "Well, we got like 3 offers on it. Do you want to submit yours?" And I'm like, "Well, this is
No.
what I'm thinking. Is it even
Yeah.
worth it?" And they're like, "Oh, we're getting cash offer, like a cash
Yeah.
offer for like 10,000 or 20,000 higher than what they've been traditionally going for." And I've been tapped into my market for a good 2 years now, knowing
Yeah.
where the prices are, and I'm just like, "Whoa, are you serious?"
Yeah.
And
So
usually what happens is that the offer gets accepted for someone who can close quickly.
yeah. So there's a couple of thoughts there. First and foremost, I've been doing this 20 some years. There's always dumb money out there. You can't just like there are some people that have money from stocks or a 1031 exchange or whatever, and don't second guess your numbers, right? Just know that sometimes there's dumb money out there, and if dumb money wants to do dumb things, let them. Just go on to the next one. Second, I would still follow up on those deals. I would follow up every 10 days and say, "Hey, I'm still here. I'm still here." Sometimes these mythical cash offers don't actually materialize. And if you can come in after 30 days of being on market with your offer, because at that point, the real estate agent has already cashed the check for their commission and the seller is already thinking they're out. So just because you lose to some cash offer, they're not always as strong as you think they are. So I would still follow up every 10 days until it's closed. It's just who I am. It doesn't always work. Sometimes they close in 10 days. It's like, oh, there goes some dumb money. But realize that all cash offers aren't created equal as well.
That's smart. Thanks, Mike.
You got it. Frank, what's going on, buddy? Might be the last question because I have the 10 o'clock interview.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. This one should be quick, but
Mhm.
over the last couple of months, I was thinking about starting a new series of videos on our channel,
Mhm.
going way back to the very basics of what people should look at if they think they want to get started investing in real estate.
Mhm.
And I just wanted to ask here, and people can connect with me later on any suggestions, but
Mhm.
the first thing that we came up with was to actually introduce you guys, the REI Avengers, you, Mike, Matt, and Dion,
Mhm.
so that people could get connected there and learn along the way as they're watching these videos.
Sure.
The other couple things that came to mind was, as you say, get your money right.
Mhm.
And even as basic as the language and the terminology when you're talking to lenders or
Yeah.
agents or whoever it might be, because in the beginning we were kind of lost, and we felt kind of stupid because
Yeah.
we didn't understand what these people were talking about.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
just wonder if anything popped into your head on the very basic first thing
Yeah.
people should be.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. The first person I would get on is Dion because one of the things that Dion does a great job of telling his story is he decided he was going to get on this financial freedom journey and he didn't buy a house, didn't buy anything for 2 years. It took 2 years to get to a point where he can write an offer. Most of us can't comprehend that. And I think it is such a wonderful story. Second, I would reach out to Matt, the mortgage guy, because a lot of this stuff is vocabulary. I would ask Matt, and he's in school, and I think he does one show a month. I would say, what are the I would ask him like, what are the top 10 or top 20 vocabulary words? Vocabulary words of mortgage. So that popped in my head. I might then go to Convoy Home Loans and talk about DSCR loans, because again, that is an area that not a lot of new people, right? They all think all lending is the same. So I would go to Jonathan and or Dustin, and again, they're in school, so you can ask them and tag them. And you know, again, what are the 10 words, 10 vocabulary words of DSCR? So that jumps out to me. And then I think about the Avengers specifically. So we talked about Dion's story. I really do think we all bring unique stuff. Dion's the guy that's best at getting people out of the parking lot into the stadium. I'm the best at getting people out of the stadium onto the field. Matt is the best at getting the people executing on the field. So if you keep us focused there, it would be great. Millennial Mike is obviously wonderful at out-of-state investing, how to turn a brand, a small brand, into a monster pipeline by becoming the king of Gary, Indiana. There's so much wisdom in that guy. So I would aim us very specifically at those things. That's what I would do.
Okay, great. Thank you. I appreciate the input.
No, very, very cool. Well, guys, thank you very much for being here. Hopefully you enjoyed this. I try to do this at least once a month. Love to hear what you guys are asking. Thank you for supporting school. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving if I don't talk to you. Don't forget to put yourself on the school map. I think we're at like 87 people. I want to get to 100. Put yourself on the school map. Go to your computer. There's a little icon there. There's a pen post that shows you how to do it. Keep being amazing. Take care. Bye.